You trust them with your life. Every time you open that car door, a name, a photo, a license plate, that's all it takes to say yes. But behind that smiling profile, sometimes hides something darker. These aren't urban legends. They're true stories. Real people, real rides, real terror. From the moment they sat down, their night turned into a nightmare, and some never even made it home. Back in 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic chaos, I started driving for Uber. I'd just gotten laid off from my retail job, rent was due, and I needed money, fast. At first, it was just a side gig, something to scrape by. But over time, I started doing it full-time, mostly late-night shifts, when it was quieter, fewer traffic jams, bigger tips from bar crawlers. You meet all kinds of people out there. But one night, I met someone different. And I haven't been the same since. It was a Friday night in October, just past midnight. I'd just dropped off a passenger near a quiet hotel on the outskirts of town. Almost immediately, the Uber app pinged me with a new request. The name said Derek, and the pickup was only 6 minutes away, right in front of a closed-down bowling alley. When I pulled into the lot, it was dead silent. No cars, just those flickering parking lot lights casting long, eerie shadows. Then I saw him, standing alone under one of the lights. He was tall, maybe 6'2", wearing a grey hoodie, hands buried in his pockets, head lowered like he was studying the pavement. He didn't wave or move when I pulled up, just stood there. I rolled down the window and asked, "You Derek?" He slowly looked up, nodded once, and silently got into the back seat. Didn't say hello, didn't smile, just slid in, sat directly behind me, and stared straight ahead. I started the ride, glanced back, and asked if the destination, some random address in a suburban neighborhood 20 minutes away, was correct. He replied, "Yeah, that's right," in this flat, lifeless tone, not drunk, not high, just empty. Something about the way he spoke made my skin crawl. The first 5 or 6 minutes of the drive were dead silent. I'd glance at him in the rearview mirror every so often. Every single time he was staring straight at the back of my head, not out the window, not at his phone. "Jewel," asked me. I tried to ease the tension. "How's your night going?" He answered after a pause. "Just needed to get out of there." "Out of where?" I asked. He stared out the window and mumbled, "Doesn't matter." So I didn't push. The closer we got to the drop-off, the more isolated the roads became. No streetlights. Huge yards swallowed by trees. Finally, he leaned forward and pointed at a driveway. "Pull in there." It was a dark, run-down house. No lights inside or out. The lawn was overgrown, paint was peeling off the siding, and there wasn't a single car in the driveway. It looked abandoned. "You live here?" I asked. "Just pull in," he said. I hesitated, then turned into the driveway, parked near the front door, and waited. He didn't get out, just stared at the house. Then he said, "Wait here," and stepped out, walking around the side of the house, disappearing into the darkness. I sat there frozen. Every bone in my body was screaming, "Leave, now." But technically the ride was still active. I didn't want to get penalized for canceling. After 2 minutes, I ended the trip manually and started backing out. But before I could shift into reverse, I saw him walking back toward the car, faster this time. His hands were empty, but his face had changed. He looked wired, excited, maybe even angry. He yanked the door open and got in. "Take me to the other place." "What place?" I asked. He just said, "Drive, I'll tell you." I insisted he put it in the app. He wouldn't, just stared at me. Eventually he said, "Back to where you picked me up." The whole ride back, I could feel him watching me. The air felt heavier, tighter. I tried breaking the silence again. "Rough night?" "You could say that," he said. Then, almost to himself, "Not yet." When we finally got back, he leaned forward and asked, "You ever wonder how you're going to die?" I gave this awkward chuck, and said, "Can't say I think about it too much." He didn't laugh, just opened the door, paused, and said, "You picked the wrong guy up tonight." Then he disappeared into the dark behind the bowling alley. When I checked the app later, there was no record of Derek, no name, No trip history, no profile. It was like he never existed. This happened in the summer of 2021, when I was driving full-time for Uber. I live in a city that gets a ton of tourists, especially during the summer months. If you're willing to drive late nights, it can actually be decent money. Less traffic, and drunk passengers tend to tip better, especially if you don't judge them for singing off-key in the back seat. That night started out like any other. It was a little after 1:30 a.m., and I had just dropped off a rowdy group of college kids downtown. My next ping came almost instantly. The name said Chris, and the pin dropped near the edge of an old strip mall. Not exactly a common spot for pickups, especially that late. I figured it might have just been bad GPS. That happens. I drove over and saw this guy standing alone at the corner, hoodie up, jeans, staring down at his phone. Pretty normal looking, actually. I rolled down the window and said, "Chris?" He nodded once, then got in the back seat without a word. He didn't seem drunk. No slurring, no stumbling, just quiet. I tried making conversation like I usually do. "How's your night going?" No response, just silence. I shrugged it off and started the trip. The destination was across town, about 25 minutes away, in a quiet residential neighborhood. I'd been around there once or twice. It's one of those places with big trees, huge front yards, and absolutely no streetlights. It's pitch black at night. About 5 minutes into the ride, I noticed something weird. Chris had his phone out, but instead of texting or scrolling, he had the flashlight on, pointing upward toward the ceiling. The light was casting this eerie glow across the inside of the car. I asked, half joking, "Everything good back there?" He mumbled, "Yeah," and turned it off. The next 20 minutes were pure silence. No music, no talking. Just the hum of the engine and this thick tension hanging in the air. I kept glancing at him in the rearview mirror, but every time he was staring out the window, or at nothing. When we finally pulled up to the house, I noticed it was completely dark. No porch lights, no movement, not even a glow from a TV inside. I looked back and asked, "Is this the place?" No response. I turned around, looked right at him and repeated, "Hey, is this it?" Still nothing, just a blank stare. After a few seconds, he finally nodded. I said, "All right, have a good night," and put the car in park. But he didn't move. I asked, "Are you okay?" He still just sat there. Then, slowly, he opened the door and stepped out, but left the door wide open. He stood there facing the house like he was frozen. I waited. 10 seconds. 20. A full minute. Then suddenly he turned around, looked me dead in the eyes and said, "I need to go back." "Back where?" I asked. He didn't blink. "Where you picked me up." That was 25 minutes away. I told him politely, "You'll need to request another ride. I can't just take you back." He stared at me for a moment. "Please," he whispered. "I need to go back." "I'm sorry," I said again, "but it has to go through the app." Then he said something I'll never forget. "I can't. They're still in the house." Something about the way he said it, quiet, like he was talking to himself, made my stomach drop. "Who's still in the house?" I asked. No answer. He just stood there, breathing heavy, then slowly backed away and shut the car door. He walked toward the porch, toward that lifeless house, and vanished into the dark. I didn't wait. I pulled out, ended the trip, and headed toward downtown. A few blocks later, I stopped at a gas station to grab a drink and use the bathroom. I was only gone for 4, maybe 5 minutes. But when I got back in the car, Chris was in the back seat. Same hoodie, same blank face. I could have sworn I locked the doors. I froze. "How did you get back in?" I asked. He stared at me through the mirror. "Take me back," he said. I reached for my phone. "I'm calling the cops." That's when he leaned forward and whispered, "They're still in the house. They won't leave, no matter what I do." Back in 2019, before the world turned upside down, I flew to Washington, D.C. to visit my fiancée, Sarah. She had just finished basic training and her family wasn't flying in for another week, so we figured we'd take some time to ourselves, walk the city, visit all the historical sites, just be together. We were both excited. We hadn't seen each other in months. That day, We'd spent almost 4 hours walking around the National Mall. We hit all the major spots, Lincoln Memorial, the Washington Monument, even peeked through the gates at the White House. It was incredible. I'd never been to DC, and Sarah was practically glowing, watching me light up like a kid on a school field trip. By the time we were done, we were both completely wiped out. My legs were screaming. I sat down on a bench under some shade while Sarah pulled out her phone to request an Uber. I didn't think twice. We'd used Uber earlier that morning, no problem. She tapped her phone, said, "It's on the way," and we waited. About 10 minutes later, a grey minivan pulled up right in front of us. Didn't pull into a designated spot, just kind of stopped. Sarah glanced at her phone, then at the car, then back at me. "That's gotta be him," she said. She opened the door, leaned in and asked, "Uber for Sarah?" The man behind the wheel gave a short nod. No words, no smile, just a nod. It should have been a red flag, but I was tired and stupidly trusting. I followed her in, closed the door, and slumped in the back seat, grateful to finally sit down. The first few minutes were uneventful. The guy didn't speak, not a single word. No, hello, no, how's your day been? Just silent, eyes on the road. It wasn't until Sarah nudged me that I knew something was wrong. I looked at her and immediately felt my stomach twist. Her face was pale. She looked terrified. She handed me her phone. On the screen, the Uber route was highlighted, but we weren't following it. We were going in the opposite direction of our hotel. That alone made my heart race, but it was the next notification that made my blood turn to ice. "Your Uber driver has arrived." Her phone buzzed again with a message from the actual driver. "I'm here, where are you?" We were in the wrong car. We'd gotten into the wrong car. And this man, whoever he was, knew we thought he was an Uber driver. I slowly looked at the driver's face in the rearview mirror. He was watching us, one hand on the wheel, still completely silent. I leaned forward, trying to stay calm, and said, "Hey, change of plans. Mind just letting us out here?" No response. He didn't even blink, just kept driving. I felt my pulse pounding in my ears. Sarah gripped my arm so tightly I could feel her nails through my shirt. Then, I remembered the pocket knife in my jeans. I reached down slowly, praying he wouldn't notice. When I had it in hand, I flipped the blade open and said, loud enough for him to hear, "We know you're not our Uber. If you don't pull over right now, I'll use this." For the first time, he looked up and met my eyes in the mirror. He stared, a long, cold stare. Then, without a word, he swerved the car to the shoulder and slammed on the brakes. I heard the locks click open. We didn't wait. We jumped out and bolted, not looking back. I swear, I could still hear the van's tires screeching as it tore off down the road. Once we caught our breath, Sarah frantically messaged the real Uber driver and explained everything. He actually came and picked us up where we were, and when we told him what happened, his face went serious. He said this wasn't the first time. Apparently, there had been multiple reports in that area, people posing as Uber drivers, picking tourists who weren't familiar with the city. Some victims had been robbed, some even gone missing. He said we were lucky, and he was right. If we hadn't noticed the route, if I hadn't had a knife, if he'd taken us just a few miles farther out, I don't know if we would have made it back. We filed a police report that night, gave the best description of the guy and the van that we could, but we never heard anything back. To this day, I still wonder who that man was, and what would have happened if we hadn't gotten out. By the time you realize something's wrong, you're already locked inside. These stories are disturbing, raw, and 100% real, and trust me, Story 4 will break your trust in people forever, so don't even think about clicking away. If you've ever taken an Uber, this video isn't just entertainment, it's a warning. Hit subscribe if you want more true horror that peels back the mask of normal life. Tap like to support real storytelling, and share this video with someone who rides alone at night. You just might save them from a ride they can't escape.